If landlords and politicians had their way, rent strikes would be a forgotten relic, buried next to the labor movement and the idea of a living wage. But history has a funny way of reminding us that when people fight back, they win. And when tenants refuse to be ignored, they become an existential crisis for the real estate industry. Picture this: post World War I New York. Soldiers are coming home. Inflation is eating wages alive. And landlords are acting like oil barons who just realize they can charge extra for breathing. Rent hikes were ruthless, with landlords jacking up prices 25 to 100% overnight. Tenants who at this point were one more rent increase away from losing their damn minds did what any rational person would do: they stopped paying. In 1919, thousands of working class tenants, many of them immigrants, organized a rent strike and demanded rent freezes and protections against arbitrary evictions. It worked. New York's first rent control laws were then born, and suddenly landlords weren't allowed to treat tenants like human ATMs. This was the first major rent strike victory in the US, and it proved that collective bargaining could kneecap landlord greed. Of course, landlords lost their mind. They acted like rent control was the first step toward full blown Bolshevism. But let's be real, they still got rich, just slightly less rich. Fast forward a few decades, and the rent strike evolved from an economic battle into a civil rights showdown. Harlem in the 1960s was a landlord's dream. Low income black tenants trapped in slum housing where landlords could raise rents while ignoring things like heating, plumbing, and the existence of a front door. Black tenants were systematically denied access to better housing, while white tenants were courted with incentives. The free market at work, folks. But Harlem tenants weren't about to let greedy landlords and racist housing policies win. So they organized. Tenant unions formed, rent strikes erupted, and suddenly landlords found themselves facing actual consequences. The strikes forced the city to address housing discrimination, but not before the media tried to frame it as issue of dirty apartments instead of a racist predatory landlord. The result? Legal changes that forced the landlords to maintain their properties, at least on paper. But more importantly, it proved that rent strikes weren't just about money, they were about justice. If you thought we left predatory landlords in the 20th century, I have some very bad news for you. Kansas City, 2024. Tenants at Independence Towers decided enough was enough. Their landlord had jacked up rents while refusing to fix anything, so they did what history told them actually works. They went on a rent strike. Landlords could have fixed the damn buildings and kept their tenants, but nope. Instead, they doubled down and hiked rents even higher. Why? Because the entire housing system is built to punish resistance. The second tenants flex their power, landlords get spooked and do everything in their power to break the strike. Evictions, legal threats, media spin, whatever it takes. But here's what the landlords don't want people to realize: the more tenants organize, the harder it becomes to ignore them. Every single major rent control law in this country exists because people refused to pay for their own exploitation. Rent strikes work. And the people in power are terrified that you'll find that out.